Before you place your trust in someone's words, look closely at their patterns, because not everyone who enters your life comes with good intentions. Some arrive softly, speaking gently, offering warmth and understanding, yet quietly guiding you in directions you never chose for yourself. In a world where manipulation often wears the disguise of kindness, learning to see beyond appearances is not just wisdom, it is protection. Not every smile carries sincerity, some conceal intent. A smile can be a doorway, but not every doorway leads to a place of safety. Some are carefully constructed entrances to influence, where kindness is offered not as a gift, but as a tool. You may find yourself welcomed warmly, listened to attentively, and even understood in ways that feel rare and comforting. Yet, beneath that comfort, there can exist a quiet strategy, an effort to earn your trust, not to honor it, but to use it. This is why discernment must walk beside openness, and awareness must sit close to your heart. When intentions are pure, they remain steady, even when tested by time. They do not shift with convenience, nor do they change shape when confronted with truth. But manipulation often reveals itself in inconsistency. One moment you are valued, the next you are questioned. One moment your voice matters, the next it is gently dismissed. These subtle changes are not accidents, they are signals. And if you listen carefully, you will begin to recognize that confusion is not always a lack of clarity, but sometimes a method used to weaken your certainty. It is in these moments that your inner voice becomes your most faithful guide. That quiet knowing within you, the one that feels uneasy without explanation, is not something to ignore. It is the part of you that remembers your worth even when others attempt to redefine it. Trusting yourself does not mean you will never be deceived. It means you will not stay deceived once truth begins to reveal itself. There is strength in acknowledging what feels off, even when you cannot yet explain why. Manipulators often rely on emotional leverage, gently pulling at your sense of responsibility, your empathy, or your desire to maintain peace. They may frame their expectations as needs, their demands as requests, and their control as concern. Over time, this can blur your perception, making it harder to distinguish between what you freely choose and what you feel obligated to accept. But clarity returns when you pause long enough to ask yourself whether your decisions are truly your own. To remain cautious is not to close your heart, but to protect its depth. A guarded heart is not a closed one, it is a wise one. It understands that trust is earned through consistency, not urgency, through actions, not persuasion, through respect, not pressure. And when you begin to see people for who they consistently are, rather than who they promise to be, you reclaim the power to choose your surroundings with intention. In the end, your awareness becomes your quiet strength. It allows you to move through the world with both openness and protection, to extend kindness without surrendering judgment, and to recognize that while not every smile is sincere, your ability to see clearly will always guide you back to truth. Manipulation often begins with subtle praise, not obvious harm. It rarely announces itself as control. Instead, it arrives wrapped in words that feel affirming, words that recognize something in you that perhaps others have overlooked. At first, it may seem harmless, even uplifting. A compliment here, a reassurance there, a sense that you are finally being seen. But when praise is used as a doorway rather than a genuine expression, it can quietly invite you into a space where your God begins to lower without your awareness. This kind of praise is not always meant to celebrate who you are, but to position you where someone else needs you to be. It may highlight your strengths in a way that creates expectation, or emphasize your kindness in a way that makes refusal feel unkind. Over time, you may notice that what once felt like encouragement begins to carry an unspoken obligation. You feel appreciated, yet also guided. valued yet subtly steered. The lines between genuine admiration and quiet influence begin to blur, and in that blur, control can take root without resistance. It is important to recognize how easily the human heart responds to acknowledgement. Being seen and valued is a natural desire, and there is nothing wrong with receiving praise. However, wisdom lies in observing the intention behind the words and the consistency of the behavior that follows. Genuine appreciation does not seek to direct your choices or shape your identity for someone else's benefit. It does not attach conditions to your worth, nor does it shift when you exercise independence. Subtle praise becomes a tool of manipulation when it is used repeatedly to build a sense of dependence. You may begin to look to that person for validation, to measure your decisions through their approval, and to question your own judgment when it differs from theirs. Without realizing it, your confidence can slowly intertwine with their opinions, making it harder to distinguish your own voice from the influence they have established. This is not a sudden loss of control, but a gradual surrender of it. Remaining aware of this pattern allows you to step back and observe without immediately reacting. When praise feels excessive, inconsistent, or tied to expectations that feel unclear, it is worth pausing to reflect on its purpose. True encouragement strengthens your independence rather than shaping your dependency. It supports your growth without redirecting your path. It affirms who you are without attempting to redefine what you should become. In moments where words feel pleasing, but something within you feels uncertain, that quiet awareness deserves your attention. It is in that space between comfort and clarity that discernment grows. By staying rooted in your own sense of truth, you protect yourself, not by withdrawing from others, but by ensuring that your openness is guided by understanding rather than influence. Control is rarely taken by force. It is often earned through trust. At first, trust feels like a bridge you willingly extend toward another person, a quiet agreement that allows connection to grow without resistance. In its purest form, trust is a strength, a sign that you are open to shared understanding and mutual respect. Yet, when it is approached by someone with hidden intent, trust can become the very pathway through which influence enters unnoticed. What begins as connection can gradually shift into subtle guidance, where your choices start aligning less with your own inner voice and more with the expectations placed upon you. This process is rarely abrupt. It unfolds in small, almost invisible steps. A suggestion offered here, a preference expressed there, a pattern of agreement that slowly encourages you to rely on another person's perspective. Over time, you may find yourself checking in before making decisions, seeking approval where none is required, or adjusting your thoughts to maintain harmony. What once felt like collaboration begins to feel like dependence, though it may not be immediately recognized as such. The comfort of trust can sometimes mask the quiet emergence of control, especially when it is reinforced by familiarity and consistency in behavior that appears supportive. It is in this gradual unfolding that awareness becomes essential. Trust should never require the surrender of your own judgment. When it is healthy, it expands your confidence rather than replaces it. It allows two individuals to stand beside each other, not above or beneath one another. But when control is being woven through trust, there is often a subtle imbalance that develops. One voice begins to carry more weight than the other, not through authority, but through influence that has been carefully built over time. Recognizing this does not mean withdrawing from others or approaching relationships with suspicion. It means maintaining a steady connection to your own sense of direction while remaining open to others. The presence of trust should not silence your inner voice. It should coexist with it. When decisions begin to feel less like choices and more like obligations shaped by another's expectations, It is a moment to pause and reflect on whether your trust is being honored or quietly redirected. True trust strengthens mutual respect. It does not require persuasion, pressure, or repeated validation to maintain its place. It exists openly without manipulation and respects the individuality of each person involved. When you remain grounded in your own awareness, you are better able to distinguish between guidance that supports you and influence that seeks to steer you. In doing so, you preserve not only your autonomy, but also the integrity of the trust you choose to extend, ensuring that it remains a bond built on clarity rather than quiet control. Those who rush your decisions may be guiding, not helping. There is a difference between someone who walks beside you with patience and someone who urges you forward with urgency. Genuine guidance allows space for thought, reflection, and understanding. It respects the pace at which your mind and heart align. It does not demand immediate answers, nor does it create a sense of pressure that clouds your ability to think clearly. Instead, it offers perspective and then steps back, trusting you to arrive at your own conclusion. Rushing, on the other hand, often carries an unspoken agenda. When decisions are pushed to be made quickly, there is little room to examine details, question motives, or consider consequences. In that hurried space, clarity can become blurred, and hesitation may be mistaken for indecision. Yet hesitation is not always a weakness. Sometimes it is the mind's way of protecting you from stepping into something without full awareness. A person who insists on speed may not be concerned with your understanding, but rather with the outcome they wish to see. It is important to notice how you feel in the presence of such urgency. Do you feel supported or do you feel cornered? Do your thoughts feel organized or do they feel scattered under pressure? The difference lies not only in the words being spoken, but in the space being given to process them. When someone is truly guiding you, they will not be unsettled by your need to pause. They will not interpret your careful thinking as resistance, nor will they attempt to override your comfort with their timeline. Patience is often the quiet sign of genuine intention. A person who values your well-being will allow you the time to align with your own judgment. They understand that decisions made with clarity tend to be stronger and more sustainable than those made under pressure. Rushing may produce immediate agreement, but it does not guarantee thoughtful agreement. And without thought, agreement can become compliance, which slowly shifts the balance of control away from you. In moments where urgency is placed upon you, it becomes necessary to return to your own center. Asking yourself whether the pace feels natural or imposed can reveal more than the words being spoken. Your ability to pause, reflect, and choose without haste is not something to be dismissed. It is a form of inner discipline that protects you from decisions that do not fully belong to you. When guidance is real, it does not fear your independence. It encourages it. It does not depend on your haste to succeed, nor does it require your immediate alignment to feel valid. Instead, it remains steady, allowing you to move forward when you are ready, not when you are pressured. In recognizing this distinction, you preserve your clarity, ensuring that your decisions are shaped by understanding rather than urgency, and by your own awareness rather than another's influence. Emotional confusion is a common tool of manipulators. It does not arrive loudly or with clear intent. Instead, it settles quietly into your thoughts, making what once felt certain begin to feel uncertain. You may find yourself questioning your own reactions, revisiting conversations in your mind, and wondering whether you misunderstood what was said or felt. In that space of uncertainty, clarity becomes harder to hold on to, and the ground beneath your confidence can begin to feel less stable. This confusion is often created through mixed signals. Words may express one thing while actions suggest another, leaving you caught between what you hear and what you observe. Over time, this inconsistency can lead you to second guess your own judgment. You may start to rely more on explanations than on your own perception, seeking answers outside yourself because the signals you receive no longer align in a clear way. What once felt straightforward becomes layered with doubt, and in that doubt, influence can quietly take hold. Emotional confusion also affects the way you respond. When you are unsure of what is real or what is intended, your reactions may become cautious, hesitant, or overly accommodating. You may avoid confrontation to maintain peace, even when something within you feels unsettled. This internal conflict can create a pattern where your instincts are gradually set aside in favor of keeping harmony with the other person, even at the cost of your own clarity. Recognizing this pattern requires attention to your inner state. Clarity does not come from others explaining their intentions repeatedly. It comes from consistency between words and actions. When those two do not align, confusion is not a reflection of your inability to understand, but a signal that something is not being presented transparently. Your awareness becomes a tool that helps you step back and observe rather than immediately react. In moments of emotional confusion, it is helpful to slow down your response and return to your own perspective. Ask yourself what feels consistent, what feels uncertain, and whether the situation is bringing you a sense of steadiness or disorientation. A clear connection should bring calm, not continuous doubt. When confusion becomes a repeated experience rather than a temporary moment, it is worth acknowledging that your clarity is being affected by external influence. Maintaining awareness in such situations allows you to protect your sense of direction. By trusting your observations and giving value to your inner responses, you begin to separate genuine understanding from imposed uncertainty. In doing so, you reclaim a sense of balance, ensuring that your emotions remain guided by clarity rather than shaped by confusion that was never meant to serve you. Consistency reveals character more than words ever will. Words can be chosen carefully, shaped to impress, softened to comfort, or strengthened to persuade. They can be repeated with ease, adapted to the moment, and delivered with a tone that feels convincing. But consistency is not something that can be easily rehearsed for a short time and then forgotten. It lives in patterns, in repeated behavior, in the quiet alignment between what is said and what is done when no one is watching and no immediate benefit is being sought. When a person's actions remain steady across time and circumstance, they offer something more reliable than any promise spoken in a single moment. Consistency shows up in how someone treats you when things are easy and when things become difficult. It is visible in whether respect is maintained even during disagreement, whether patience is present even during stress, and whether honesty remains intact even when it is inconvenient. These repeated behaviors form a clearer picture than any isolated statement ever could. It is easy to be influenced by moments that feel strong or memorable. A well-timed promise can create hope, and a thoughtful statement can create trust. Yet, without consistent follow-through, those moments remain only impressions rather than evidence of true intent. Over time, patterns begin to speak louder than introductions. The way someone responds repeatedly becomes more meaningful than the way they present themselves initially. This is where understanding deepens, not through what is declared, but through what is demonstrated again and again. Consistency also provides a sense of stability in relationships and interactions. When behavior is predictable in a healthy way, it allows you to feel secure in your understanding of the other person. There is less need to question motives or interpret mixed signals because the pattern remains clear. This clarity supports trust that is grounded in reality rather than expectation. On the other hand, inconsistency can create a sense of uncertainty, where you are left adjusting your perception repeatedly to match shifting behavior. Observing consistency requires patience. It cannot always be recognized in a single encounter or a brief period of time. It reveals itself gradually through repeated experiences that either align or fail to align with what has been expressed. This is why taking time to observe patterns is more reliable than forming conclusions based on isolated interactions. When actions remain aligned over time, they confirm intention in a way that words alone cannot. In the end, consistency serves as a quiet but powerful indicator of character. It does not rely on persuasion or presentation. It simply exists in the steady repetition of behavior that reflects true intent. By paying attention to consistency, you allow yourself to see beyond surface impressions and recognize what is real, grounded not in what is promised, but in what is continually proven through action. Guilt is often used as a quiet leash to influence behavior. It does not always arrive with direct accusation or open pressure. Instead, it settles in through suggestion, tone, or repeated implication. You may hear phrases that seem harmless at first, yet carry an underlying weight that makes you question your actions. Over time, this subtle emotional pull can create a sense that you are responsible for the comfort, approval, or emotional state of someone else, even when that responsibility does not truly belong to you. This kind of guilt is not always expressed clearly. It can be embedded in silence, in disappointed looks, in carefully chosen words that highlight what you did not do rather than what you did. It may appear when boundaries are set, when decisions are made independently, or when you choose a path that does not align with another person's expectations. In those moments, guilt can be used to make you reconsider your choices, not because they are wrong, but because they do not serve someone else's needs. Internal response becomes essential in these moments. Guilt that arises from within, based on your own values and actions, is different from guilt that is introduced through external pressure. One leads to reflection and growth, while the other leads to confusion and self-doubt. By learning to distinguish between the two, you begin to reclaim clarity in your decisions and reduce the influence of emotions that are placed upon you rather than naturally experienced. When you no longer allow guilt to dictate your choices, you create space for decisions that are grounded in understanding rather than emotional control. This does not mean ignoring others or dismissing their feelings, but rather recognizing that your actions should not be governed by pressure that manipulates rather than communicates. In maintaining this awareness, you protect your sense of balance, ensuring that your responses come from a place of clarity, respect, and self-trust, rather than from a quiet obligation imposed by others. Awareness is your strongest protection against deception. It is not loud, nor does it seek attention, but it remains constant, quietly observing what others may overlook. Awareness allows you to see beyond surface impressions and recognize the subtle details that often reveal truth. In a world where words can be carefully chosen and intentions can be hidden beneath layers of politeness, awareness becomes the steady light that helps you distinguish what is genuine from what is constructed. To be aware is to remain present in both thought and feeling. It means paying attention not only to what is being said, but also to how it is being said, when it is being said, and whether it aligns with what is consistently shown over time. Deception often depends on distraction, on keeping your focus on the obvious while the important details remain unnoticed. Awareness interrupts that pattern. It encourages you to slow down internally, to observe without immediately accepting, and to allow time to reveal what may not be visible at first glance. Awareness also strengthens your ability to trust your own perception. When you are not fully present, it becomes easier for others to define your reality for you. But when awareness is active, you begin to rely more on your own observations. You notice inconsistencies, you recognize repeated behaviors, and you become less dependent on external explanations to understand what you are experiencing. This does not mean assuming the worst in every situation, but rather maintaining a balanced openness that is guided by clarity instead of assumption. Deception often loses its influence when it is exposed to attention. Many manipulative patterns rely on subtlety and repetition, gradually shaping your understanding without drawing suspicion. However, when you remain observant, those patterns become harder to sustain. You begin to see when words do not match actions, when promises are not followed through, and when behavior shifts depending on convenience. Awareness gives you the ability to step back and evaluate rather than absorb everything at face value. In practicing awareness, patience becomes an important companion. Not every situation needs an immediate response, and not every statement requires immediate belief. Allowing time for patterns to unfold gives you a clearer perspective. It creates space to compare, reflect, and understand without being influenced by the urgency that deception sometimes uses as a tool. Through this process, clarity develops naturally, not from force, but from careful observation. Ultimately, awareness is not about living with suspicion, but about living with clarity. It helps you engage with the world while maintaining a grounded understanding of what you see and experience. When awareness is present, deception finds it harder to take root because it depends on unnoticed gaps. By remaining attentive, patient, and observant, you strengthen your ability to navigate situations with confidence, ensuring that your understanding is shaped by truth rather than influenced by what is hidden beneath the surface. Silence, observation, and patience can reveal what words hide. In a world filled with constant noise, where everyone is eager to explain, defend, and persuade, silence becomes a rare and powerful position. It is in silence that you begin to notice what is often missed: the pauses between words, the shifts in tone, the things that are avoided rather than expressed. When you are not rushing to respond, you create space to truly see, and in that space, truth has a way of rising quietly to the surface. Observation deepens what silence begins. It allows you to connect patterns, to recognize repetition, and to understand behavior beyond a single moment. Words can be crafted, adjusted, and refined depending on the situation, but behavior leaves a trail that cannot be easily erased. When you observe without interruption, you begin to see that what people do consistently will always carry more weight than what they say occasionally. It is through observation that contradictions become visible and intentions begin to take shape without needing to be announced. Patience, then, becomes the steady force that holds silence and observation together. It is not always easy to wait, especially when answers feel urgent or clarity feels delayed. Yet truth rarely unfolds all at once. It reveals itself in layers through time, through repeated interactions, and through moments that might seem insignificant at first. Without patience, there is a tendency to accept early impressions as final conclusions, but with patience, you allow reality to fully present itself before you decide what to believe. There is a quiet strength in not reacting immediately. When you resist the urge to fill every silence or respond to every statement, you begin to take back control of your own understanding. You are no longer being guided solely by what is presented to you. Instead, you are actively engaging with what is real. This does not mean withdrawing or becoming distant, but rather choosing when and how to respond with intention instead of impulse. Silence also has a way of inviting others to reveal more than they intend. In the absence of immediate feedback, people often continue speaking, sometimes offering details or contradictions that would have remained hidden if interrupted. What is concealed in structured conversation can surface in unguarded moments. By simply being present and attentive, you allow those moments to unfold naturally. In the end, silence, observation, and patience are not signs of passivity, but of awareness in its most refined form. They allow you to move beyond appearances and into understanding, where truth is not forced but discovered. When you embrace these qualities, you no longer rely solely on what is said to guide you. Instead, you learn to see what is shown over time, and in doing so, you gain a clarity that cannot be easily influenced or misled.